You're on the subway. Sitting across from you is a man, maybe 40 years old. Nothing special. Gray jacket, earbuds in, staring out the window. Your eyes pass over him for half a second, and you forget he exists. But what if I told you that man made a decision yesterday that will quietly alter the lives of 300 people? That in his jacket pocket is a phone with an unread message from his daughter, a daughter who hasn't spoken to him in 2 years. That he's not going home right now, he's going to a hospital where his mother is lying in a bed, and he doesn't know if she'll still be breathing when he walks through the door. You don't know that. You will never know that. And that is the darkest truth about human beings that nobody wants to sit with. In 2012, a writer named John Koenig invented a word that existed in no language on earth, but described a feeling every single person has experienced and never had a name for: Sonder. The realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid, as complex, and as quietly devastating as your own, complete with their 3 a.m. spirals, their private shames, their people they're terrified of losing, their stories that will never be written down, never be filmed, never be told to anyone who wasn't there. It sounds beautiful when you first hear it, almost poetic. The kind of thing you'd put on an Instagram graphic with soft lighting. But I want to talk about the other side of Sonder today, the side nobody talks about. Because here's the question nobody asks. What happens when someone understands Sonder and decides to use it? Not as a source of compassion, not as a reminder of our shared humanity, but as a tool, as leverage, as a map of every hidden room inside a person and a key to walk right in. Most people walk through the world blind to the interior lives of others. They see the surface, the face, the posture, the small talk, and they assume that's most of what there is. This is normal. This is actually a psychological survival mechanism. If you genuinely absorbed the full emotional weight of every person you passed on the street, you'd be paralyzed within an hour. But there is a category of people who are wired differently. Psychologists call it high cognitive empathy, the ability to model another person's inner world with startling accuracy. To look at someone and intuitively reconstruct their fears, their desires, their wounds, their patterns. Not feeling what they feel, but understanding it with cold, architectural precision. And here is where Sonder becomes dangerous. Because when someone with high cognitive empathy and low emotional empathy looks at you, they don't see a person. They see a system. They see inputs and outputs. They see pressure points. They see the gray jacket man on the subway, and instead of feeling a quiet ache of shared humanity, they start calculating. What does he need right now? What is he afraid of? What would make him trust me? And what could I get from him if he did? This is the psychology of manipulation at its most sophisticated level. And it begins with something that looks, from the outside, almost identical to compassion. Here's what dark psychology understands that the rest of us don't. Every person is walking around with an entire hidden architecture inside them. Floors that haven't been visited in years, rooms that are locked from the inside, structural damage that they've plastered over and learned to root around. And most people are starving for someone to notice. Not to fix it, not even to talk about it, just to see it. This is the master manipulator's most powerful move, and it costs them nothing. They make you feel seen. They ask the question no one else thought to ask. They remember the detail you mentioned once, casually, 6 weeks ago. They look at you in a way that feels different, like they are actually registering your presence rather than just tolerating it. And something inside you, something ancient and hungry, responds. Because the terrifying truth about human beings is this: we are so accustomed to being invisible to each other that the moment someone appears to truly see us, we flood them with trust they haven't earned. This is Sonder weaponized. The manipulator doesn't need to hack your passwords or read your diary. They just need to make you believe, deeply, viscerally believe, that they understand the specific texture of your inner life. And you will hand them everything. But why does this work so well? Why are we this vulnerable? Because of a paradox that sits at the very heart of modern existence. We have never been more connected to other human beings in the history of our species. Right now, in your pocket, you have a device that can put you in contact with virtually anyone on the planet within seconds. And we have never been more profoundly, structurally alone. Researchers at Harvard have been tracking human happiness and connection since 1938. One of the longest studies ever conducted on adult life. And what they found consistently across generations and demographics is this: the quality of our relationships is the single greatest predictor of how happy and healthy we are. Not money, not status, not achievement. Connection. But real connection. The kind where someone actually knows the weight of what you carry, has become almost vanishingly rare. Most of our interactions are transactional, surface level. We perform being fine for each other. We scroll past each other's carefully curated lives and feel, somehow, both overstimulated and completely unseen. Into this void walks the person who understands Sonder. They don't need to be extraordinary. They don't need to be particularly attractive or successful or clever. They just need to do the one thing that almost no one else is doing: actually pay attention to you. And in a world starved of genuine attention, that is an almost unimaginable power. There's a specific technique that manipulators use that psychologists call mirroring, and it directly exploits the Sonder effect. It works like this. When you first meet someone, you don't fully know who you are yet in relation to them. You're feeling it out, and the manipulator, consciously or unconsciously, begins reflecting back a version of you that is slightly more heroic, slightly more interesting, slightly more understood than the version anyone else has ever shown you. They laugh at the things you secretly think are brilliant about yourself. They take seriously the things you've been told don't matter. They find the part of you that you've kept most hidden, and they say with their eyes, with their attention, with their silence at exactly the right moment, "I see that. I think that part is remarkable." And you fall. Not in love necessarily, though that often happens too. You fall into them. You begin to organize your inner life around their perception of you. You need them to keep reflecting that version of you back, because without them, you can't quite see it anymore. This is called narcissistic supply when it's at its most extreme. But the mechanism exists on a spectrum that touches almost every close relationship we have. The reason it's dark isn't the technique itself.
People do versions of this unconsciously all the time, and sometimes it's just called chemistry. It becomes dark when it's deliberate, when the person holding the mirror knows exactly what they're doing, knows the reflection isn't entirely true, and has already decided what they intend to take from you once you're dependent on seeing yourself through them.
Now, here's the turn. Because I didn't come here just to show you the shadow side of this. I came here to show you what it means that the shadow side exists. If Sonder can be weaponized, if understanding the depth of another person's inner life can be used as leverage against them, that means the original thing, the real thing, is genuinely powerful. Genuine empathy, genuine attention, genuine curiosity about the hidden architecture of the person sitting across from you. That is not a small thing. That is not a soft, decorative quality. That is one of the most potent forces in human experience. And the only reason it can be corrupted is because it's valuable enough to steal. Think about the gray jacket man on the subway again. What if, instead of a manipulator reading his body language for weaknesses, the person across from him was just present? Not performing presence, not extracting anything, just aware in a quiet way that this ordinary-looking man contains an entire universe of experience that has nothing to do with how he appears. You don't need to do anything with that awareness. You don't need to speak to him. You don't need to save him or understand him completely. You just need to let it register that he is. That's the thing Sonder is asking of us. Not to be overwhelmed by everyone's pain. Not to dissolve into a sea of other people's complexity. But to resist, just slightly, just enough, the default human impulse to make everyone around you into furniture, into background. Because here's the final dark truth. The loneliness that makes us vulnerable to manipulation, the hunger to be truly seen, we are creating that loneliness for each other. Every time we look through someone instead of at them, every time we are too absorbed in our own interior monologue to register that the person in the gray jacket has one too, the manipulator exploits a gap. But we built the gap. There's a man you'll never think about again getting off a train somewhere right now. He has a name. He has a memory he'll never tell anyone. He made a mistake 20 years ago that still wakes him up at 4 a.m. He has a song that inexplicably makes him cry, and he doesn't know why. He is as real as you are, and so is everyone else. That's not a comfortable thought. It's not supposed to be. Comfort was never what Sonder was offering. It was offering something harder and rarer, and worth far more. A world where you are not the only one who is real. Welcome to the inside of everyone else's life. You've been living next to it your whole time.